everybody. This is M.E Thomas. I am here with Dorian. Dorian, I'm going to ask you the question I ask everybody. What is it like to be you?
Wow. What is it like to be me? I'd say, it's kind of it's normal for the most part, but there are these times where like you're doing something that's technically antisocial, but you're not, or criminal especially, which I've had in the past, and you're not really, the people around you are telling you that you're crazy, or they might even say, you're a psychopath for thinking of doing that, and you're kind of you're not caring, but yet you're really hyper observant, hyper vigilant about everything, but you don't care, which is a very weird combination to have. Uh, you're definitely it's. I mean, I like to talk to people. I like to get to know about them, but I mean, whether it's because I genuinely care or just because I mean, I think it's more because I'm bored. Like I'll talk, like a lot of people in my work. Nobody knows of my diagnosis or condition. Nobody has a clue, and I'm very careful about that. But I like to talk to people. I'm interested in people, but it's just more to curate the boredom. You're going to be bored. You're going to be restless, and it's very, I'm not scared of anything or anyone. I'm not fearful, but the closest thing to that is pure chronic boredom over a certain a long period of time. I mean, I don't know what it is for you, but I cannot take that. I mean, I've had moments where I'm just sat in my flat and I'm like, I'm so bored, and I'll get dressed and I will just start like walking extremely fast, like down the street, because I just want to walk. I want to do something. And I've had it very, like my impulse control is good, but like if I'm drunk, it's really bad. So like I will, I'll go out to a dozen, different pubs. I'll meet all sorts of people. I'll drain my bank account. I'm really, like it's just kind of like that. It's like anything can happen, but I've got to be in control of everything if possible. But it never is. And I'd say the other thing as well, you're not going to learn from your mistakes. Everyone's going to tell you that, they're going to go, hey, remember the last 15 times you tried that and it didn't work. And then you're always able to rationalize your own BS. But you don't see that it's BS because it's you, and you're above it all. So how can it be wrong, right? But it's always, I like to say, sociopaths, psychopaths, whatever you may call us, we have the benefit of hindsight, but it's absolutely useless. It's so it just doesn't work. It does not work 99% of the time. Yeah. My name's Dorian. I'm 20. I'm nearly 24 now. I'm nearly 24, so I'm creeping up to the mid 20s. Born in England, raised in England, and I am clinically diagnosed with antisocial personality disorder with autism spectrum disorder traits. During my, I guess what you call a psychiatric evaluation, I was given a questionnaire which a lot of people might actually be more familiar with, called the AQ10. I don't know if you have it in America, but it's a 10 point questionnaire, and you rate various traits on a scale of like 1 to 10 or 1 to 5. I can't remember what it is, and it asks you things like, are you sensitive to lights and sounds, and are you in rigid routines, and basically like, do you have these traits of autism? It's very like straightforward. I only score a 1 out of 10 on that, so I'm not autistic. I'm all, I always say, like, I'm not autistic, I'm autistic. Like if that makes sense,
Yeah.
which I think it lands. But yeah, antisocial PD. I mean, I've done a bunch of tests. We were just saying earlier, I've done the Levinson self-report psychopathy scale test. I scored 89 out of 104 on that. That's pretty high. I think that's just like at the end of the high on the spectrum, coming up before the extremely high end of it. The triarchic psychopathy measure screening, I score 131 out of 174, which doesn't sound high, but it really is. It's quite rare to be up there in the 130s. I hear they categorize it as a very high risk for psychopathy or antisocial PD. And I'm also in possession now, which has, I mean, I don't know other people's experiences with this. It'd be interesting to see actually in the comments if you're watching. But actually getting a hold of your diagnostic records, that's taken me forever. I've had to like do all sorts of forms, and then you wait, and then you call up the GP to get, you know, because they've got to get the correspondence from the hospital, because it's the hospital that wrote it, and it's all departments, very bureaucratic, almost authoritarian, almost. But I am now, I have it in black and white in printing from the National Health Service, which is like the free health service in the UK for those who aren't aware. And they, after assessing me, they did they did this behind my back actually, which at first I was like, I'm not happy about that, but because of the way they worded it, I was like, all right, that's cool, we're okay. But they did what they call a mental state examination. So I'm there, and I'm sitting in the chair, and I'm talking to this, like, this beautiful looking nurse, by the way, and like I'm loving it. And she's taking her notes on a notepad, and I think anyone who's at least like us in that situation can say, I'm always like, what are you writing in that pad? What are you writing there? Just show me. And the whole time she's doing, as well as recording what we're both saying, she's doing a mental state examination. So she's examining appearance and behavior, speech, mood, cognition, things like that. And there's a little mini risk assessments. She described me in my appearance and behavior as he was engaging, maintaining a good rapport. His eye contact was intense, severe, and fixated. No evidence of any anxiety or aggression. Let's see, speech was normal rate and rhythm, but it was ordered and spontaneous, which is like, yeah, like we're very. I mean, for me again, I can't speak for you or others per se, but I'm very ordered in my speech. I know what I'm about to say. I know what I'm talking about, but I never sort of know where it's gonna go, what I'm gonna say,
Hmm.
if that makes sense. You get that?
I think maybe yes. Like I think there's something about the way that I talk that leads people to think that I speak with an accent, and I think maybe that's a little bit that it's like an affected speech because it's not naturally just coming. It's like thought out, but not necessarily like as she said, spontaneous. There's still spontaneity to it. It's not like I have pre-thought out a monologue to say, and
Yes.
I guess I'm kind of thinking, but it's almost as if I'm like not communicating, like not 100% of my speech is meant to be communicating to another person. I think some of it's narcissistically to hear my own voice.
Yeah. I yeah, I hear that. I hear that.
Not even just like to hear my own voice, kind of like in the way that like babies look at the like a mirror or pictures of themselves and are like, this is weird, another baby or something. I don't know.
No, I get that. The complete fascinate. Yeah, excuse me. The fascination with the self. I mean, what I didn't mention as well, because first before I was clinically diagnosed, I will finish this my examination in a second. I will share that. But before I was clinically diagnosed, I self-diagnosed. But I just wanted to be sure. Just I wanted to be 100% on it and think, what do the doctors think? I'm sure I know I'm this, but I want it in writing. And I did mention, it was last time I was on, or I mentioned it to you at least. I'm pretty sure I've mentioned it on the show before. I tried to get re-referred because upon again, I did the same thing I did with ASPD. I watched hours of videos, talked with people with the disorder, and studied the DSM-5 and other things. And I've repeated the same thing with a narcissistic personality disorder.
Mm.
And I meet more or less, I think it's either 8 out of 9 or 9 out of 9 of the DSM-5 criteria. But some of that's been done for me, like my solicitor in the past when I've been in like court. She said to me, like you can come across as kind of arrogant without realizing you want to tone it down before you go and see the judge. Just like you've got to stand there and like actually look sorry. And my baby's mother, she said the same thing. We get on well, but we see each other. We're not together anymore. She says I can only take you in small doses. She said it's the arrogance, and then situationally, she said it's the callousness. She said I don't know how you're like the way you are. She said it amazes her, but it kind of like can be sometimes a little bit like just downright off-putting in the fact that we don't react. But yeah, so I have basically a comorbid condition of antisocial with narcissistic personality disorder. That makes sense, because I have a parent, and it was my mother. She showed a lot of traits. I mean, I didn't realize at the time because I was very young, but very often very controlling. Especially, it was like she just it's difficult to word and describe. It's just like she wanted to keep me young forever. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Just very controlling. The slightest thing would always love to pick arguments. There's cluster B genetics on either side of my family. But yeah, absolutely. We were talking about the fascination with self and narcissism. Whenever I'm walking down the street or I'm walking past like my mirror in the flat, I'm checking myself out constantly. There's times where I'm looking more at myself than where I'm going. It's a miracle that I haven't walked into a lamppost or a tree yet, which I'm sure is bound to happen or trip up or something. But it is, and I'll immediately fixate on my hair. It's immediately it's like my hair or my face. It's not just the whole. I mean, for me personally, it's not like my whole look, although I'm taking that into account. It's like my face, especially like if I've had time to like moisturize in the morning rather than the afternoon, and things like that. So that absolutely, we're just like we're literally like I'm not just in my own little world. I'm in my own little world of me. That's the way I'd word it, and it sounds right. And I've said this before, but it's been pointed out to me like it sounds silly, and it does, but it's just the truth. And I mean, God's honest truth. That's just the way. And what do you do when you're kind of you're fixed like that? It's not your fault. But yeah, there's people in society, or I'd say even still, the vast majority of society they'll have no empathy for the people who didn't have a choice, who were like born
Oh
subclinical
yeah.
narcissist, subclinical psychopath. They treat us the way that they look at us, if that makes sense.
What do you mean? Like they treat us poorly because they look at us poorly? They're like, "This person is subhuman?"
The hypocrites. I've said this before. It's typical neurotypical hypocrisy.
Mhm.
That's the thing I'm driving at.
Mhm.
Excuse me. But yeah, and that's, I mean, that's one thing I'm now. I mean, like, I accept it. I've got my head round it, but it's always going to be like wow, like seriously, like this is what you guys are like, and like you all think like I'm disordered, and it's like you're all weird to me. Like I've got a story. I'll finish. I'm just going to read off these are the diagnostic. Go on, you were going to say
Real
something.
before we get off this topic of narcissism, I think, like, for me, at least, like, I'll speak to myself because I think, like, people may get confused because my narcissism, unlike people with narcissistic personality disorder where that's their primary thing, is that I don't care what other people think. I just care like what I think about me. You know, I don't necessarily like for instance, like if I was checking my hair, you know, listening to my voice, it's not a preoccupation with the way that I'm perceived. The way that I experience narcissists who are primarily narcissistic personality disorder people, they seem they don't really care about their own judgment, it seems. They care about, you know, whether they're seen to be a good person or whether they're seen to be, you know, influential or whether they're seen to be, you know, kind of like their popularity.
Yeah, no, they do. Well, this was one thing that, so when I got, because I didn't get my typed up diagnosis for a year, I got told over the phone, I got rang by the, because first I was seen by the nurse, the beautiful nurse I mentioned before, and then she took her notes to her like head doctor, and I don't know what I said, but I must have said something, but it raised alarms with them basically. So she was like, right, I've got to see this young man now. Like she couldn't see me again. I don't know what it was, but I mean, like I wasn't well. I mean, I'm trying to like make it comfortable in a certain way. There was like some like flirtatious going on. Maybe it was that. I'm not sure, but but she saw me and she called me. It was on. It was in. It was about a year ago. She called me, like maybe like literally a year and a week or 2 weeks ago. It's just been over a year to the day because I've got the date on the letter. And she rang me and she said, look, we rang your, she said, we read your self-diagnostic paper because I did a self-diagnostic report like on myself and I gave them a copy. I still have a copy. And they must have thought that there's a couple of funny things that I've read in here. And I'm like, wow, did I really like, say that with a straight face? But
Mhm.
they read what I'd done, and it included like not just experiences from now, or like what you'd call like psychopathic ways of thinking or behaving, but it also included things from like when I was in secondary school, even like when I was a child, because I wanted to cover the whole personality growing up, because it's not just about the now. It's like, well, what were you like when you were a kid? Do you know what I mean? Like I was doing like most of the things. To be honest, I'm dying to say like the narcissist in me like wants to brag, and that can be my downfall. But it's like I can't say like I've gotten away with so much. You know what I mean? Like I've gotten away. I mean, not with literally with murder, but not far off. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So it's like, but maybe in the future, who knows? But the doctor nurse, as I was saying, she rang me and she said, "Look, you do have the traits," and she said, "You were right. You know, you do have ASPD. We all saw it in you." They even had, she told me, they consulted with a team of other psychiatrists who hadn't seen me or interviewed me, but they compared notes and they must have. I mean, looking back on it, they must have probably used things like the hair psychopathy checklist and gone over, because she said she needed people more experienced just to come to a conclusion, and they all said, yeah, based on what you've observed, this is somebody who meets the criteria. So that's how I got notified of it. But I've only just like I can physically hold it now and be like, yes, like I've got it, I've done the work. But there's things. There's one here, and it's like I read this now and I realize, because I don't like to be perceived as rude. I don't like bad manners. I don't like impoliteness. I'm always saying, please and thank you. Manners maketh man, as the saying goes. And yet I say that, and then I mean, I said this to the psychiatrist with a straight. I don't really remember saying, like, I didn't say anything silly with the intention of joking. I was there for my mental health, for a rare disorder to get diagnosed. It wasn't like I was there for a laugh. So I did take it seriously, which I rarely do with most things. And yeah, I said, because she was asking me about my hobbies and what are your hobbies and what do you do. I said, I work out a lot. I really like doing like pull-ups and push-ups, and collecting weapons was another hobby as well at the time. It says he excessively works out, and then it says, quote here. This is a quote from me. I like that I have got a six pack. Look at me, I look incredible. Unquote. And it's like at the time I'll have like just totally like said that like, oh yeah, like I've got work later today and I'm seeing my kid. and oh later I've got to like mop the floor, and but it's like not. I read it because I forgot about it completely, and then I got the letter because the GP, they rang me and they were like, oh, we've got all your, because you can do a thing. I should have written it down to say because it helped so many people. But you can, or in the UK at least, you can request, if you go to your GP and you just say, look, I want every piece of like correspondence from like whatever hospital it is you've been in, whether it's for like a broken leg or a personality disorder. You can say, I want to request every piece of correspondence about me from that hospital, and they'll use your NHS number to
Mm.
get every letter that's ever been sent to and from any medical professional, and you can read it all. It's not nothing censored or anything. That's what I did. I just got everything, and then I was like, oh yeah, like that's useless, and oh yeah, that one's useless. But then I got the big 5-page one, and I was like, I mean, it was like holding a bullion. You know what I mean?
Mm.
I was like, I was on the bus, and I got on the bus, sat down, and they gave me it in an envelope. So I opened the envelope, and I'm like, didn't get the pages in order, so I'm like there with like 10 different pages trying to reorder everything in my hands, and but I did it. And I read that, and I was like, I went, did I say that? Like that? Like that's ridiculous. And I mean, like, all right, it's true, it's not a lie, but it's like the way that, especially like that at the end, look at me, I'm incredible. It's like you don't say that to someone you just met, but we're very, and I think that's definitely where the ASPD comes into play. Like I think someone just with NPD would they think that? I mean, absolutely, but they know not to say it. But when you've just got
Yeah.
like that lack of shame, and you're just like, I mean, there's a guy, HG Tudor,
Mm.
YouTuber.
Mhm.
He categorizes psychopaths as the ultra narcissists, which is like I completely agree with the sentiments. And it's like when you've got the ultra narcissists, because people like just narcissists, they've got a lot of deep shame in them that they're trying to cover up. I don't have that. I'm not ashamed. I'm not embarrassed. I mean, I'm telling you all this right now. Do you know what I mean? I don't feel a damn bit bad about it. Excuse my language,
Mhm.
but it's a funny story to me. It's just there's no feeling or there's no thought of before I say something like that that tells me, oh hey, maybe you shouldn't say something like that. It would have to be like a very formal setting, like a police interview, where I've got to present as or the remorseful guy who didn't mean to get arrested that day, and I'd be very aware then. But it's like unless it's like super serious, like with like maybe legal consequences, I'm pretty off the cuff. I
Yeah.
mean, clearly,
You
but
know what it kind of reminds me of is it's almost like an autistic approach to narcissism where you're just kind of saying the thing like, oh yeah, I have a six pack or whatever. It reminds me a little bit that in the book I describe myself in all sorts of different ways or whatever. One of the parts I think is that I still think this is true, and I'll tell you a story why I think this is true. Hopefully it's not too blue of a topic. But I describe my own breasts as being kind of like extraordinarily beautiful. And the only reason I kind of think this is because people would say that. Like I think and I had like some law school colleagues too. Like one of them was like, I never noticed your breasts like that or something, but if you say so or whatever. But I think they're also the kind that need to be uh well, I think it, uh, so so once while I was changing with a friend, she was like shocked or whatever, and she's like, "You have like 80s porn star breasts." Like they're like perfect for the 80s porn star. And not everybody's into, I think they're called heavy naturals. Not everybody's into that look. And but if you are into that look, that is what they are. They are like a very, kind of quintessential version of that particular look. And I agree with people. I don't even like wear clothes that accentuate them. Usually I don't kind of care that much. I know this about myself the same way that I know, like, my shoe size, the same way that I know my eye color, the same way that I know my height, which is, like, I just know this is true, but I don't feel any type of way about it
You're not
necessarily.
invested in it.
I'm
You're
not
not invested.
invested. Yeah, I'm not connected to it in any sort of way because it's just an accident. It's nothing I did. It's
Well,
not like
yeah, I
I
mean, you
chose
are.
to have them,
Yeah,
it's just weird genetics, it's like, there are other things that are weird about my genetics too, like did, like so many of my family have appendicitis. There's probably something genetic going on there. And I have, what is it? Like a genetic, I have all the markers for celiac disease, and I have, you know, uh, like I never had to have braces. People are like, "Oh, you have such a great smile," or something, and I'm like, "That's also just genetic." It's all just genetics. I had like literally nothing to do with like being smart. Like I have no real pride in those things because it is me, but it's also kind of not me. It's just like I was slipped into a skin suit or something, and this just happened to be the skin suit that I was slipped into. Including the
yeah.
brain, including like the all the other things, the good things and the bad things, the psychopathy, the narcissism, the whatever else. It's just like these are just facts about my existence. I don't feel shame or pride or anything regarding these things. They're just kind of like it's as if like they're true of my grandmother. That's how closely connected I feel to them. Like obviously I'm connected. I mean, my grandmothers are both dead or whatever. Obviously I'm a little bit connected to what my grandparents have done, but not really. And that's how it feels to me to have like these different things. So I'll say the thing, and I do believe that they're like extraordinarily beautiful. I even admire them sometimes. I'm like, they look good. They do look good or whatever. But it's not even my taste. I'm not even like someone who like admires breasts in general. I'm maybe even more like attracted to my ankles. I like that they're like delicate and whatever than I am to my own breasts or
That's
whatever.
weird.
But that's
That
because I'm not sexually
See,
attracted to myself.
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, that the ankle thing's a little that's a twist at the end. But no, I mean like I mean with me it's more like the upper body, the physique. Like I work out very heavily. I make sure that I look good. And like I never used to work out, but like now like when I work out, because like me and the mother of my child, we do have a laugh. We do get on. Like I'm always like getting up in her face and like flexing my biceps. And I'm like, oh, do you know how many push-ups I did today? And she's just like, oh, she just gets annoyed now. She's like, oh, you're ridiculous. She goes, we know, like you're great. You just like get out of my way and let me in. But no, I'm very see that's where we differ. Like I'm very invested in that. Like I mean, I the the hours that I've probably spent in front of a mirror, like I mean, like sheer hours, because it's all very important to me. And my dad said to me, it was during my psychiatric eval, and I told him, I said, I think I might have this personality disorder, and in layman's terms, I might actually be like a sociopath, or whatever you want to call it. And he was like, he just looked at me for like a second, or like literally not even 2 seconds, and he was like, yeah, I've thought this about you for like years. Same thing my baby's mother said. You were like, yeah, I'm not surprised one bit. And like they're amazed it took you this long. But he said to me, I mean, it's somewhat of an unrealistic example, but he left me. It's always one of these films that's like they always put it on very late for some reason. I mean, somewhat probably because of the content, but the 2000 film American Psycho with Christian Bale. I
Mm-hmm.
told him a couple of times. I tried to get him to read the book because for those who are fans, the book's like far better than the film. The book beats the film every day. But I don't take Bale's performance for granted. It was excellent, and that's just the cinephile in me. The but no, he left me a voicemail because it was like 2 in the morning and like I was asleep, and I had this voicemail off him, and he said I just finished watching that American Psycho. He said it was on late, and I thought, oh, I'll give it a watch because Dorian said it was good, and he said he liked it, and he also has a thing where like in any movie, if someone fires a gun, like a pistol, he'll count how many bullets they fire out of the gun. And but he's diagnosed obsessive compulsive disorder, so it's probably just an OCD thing. But he said to me, he said, you know, he said I couldn't stop thinking about you watching American Psycho. He said it wasn't just necessarily the. He said Patrick Bateman is so callous and he's so unconcerned with other people's feelings, which I've seen from you, like he's seen from me countless times, you know, more than he can count. He's my dad. And but he also said to me, he said everything about you is just like the way you act and the way you are. It's like you can't hide it. But everything about you is just it's all about appearance. It's all about how you look. It's all about how you sound, and it's just as my baby's mother says, yeah, it's the Dorian Steele show. She says
Mm.
that's how you treat life. It's the Dorian Steele show, and but but with me, I mean, but I raise back to you, the viewer. How else am I supposed to treat life? Am I supposed to treat life like it's your show? Because no, I don't. This is my life, and I'm going to live it the way that I want to, and the way that I see fit. And yeah, am I supposed to treat life like the M.E Thomas show? No, that's great. Oh, you know what I mean? Maybe that's just not. I mean, maybe that's not having empathy. I don't know, but it's that's just if that doesn't make sense to me to live any other way. I'm not, you know, I'm me, and I'm gonna, you know, I'll take pride in that. So that's where I fall. But I am extremely. I don't worry about what's on the inside. I mean, if there is any, but I'm not like concerned with things like that. I mean, I wouldn't even really know how to talk about it, to be honest. Which is, excuse me, I'm getting a call. The But now I wouldn't know how to. I wouldn't begin on how to talk about personality really as such. I can talk. I mean, I always say I don't have a personality. I have a personality disorder.
Uh, yeah, when you say that it's the Dorian Steele show, it reminds me that was the subject line of the first email my girlfriend ever sent me, like back in like 2013 or 2014. And she said the same thing that her girlfriend said, you know, you live your life like it's the Arya show. So it's interesting. Often when I meet psychopaths, I either think, oh, this person's like me, or I think they're like my girlfriend Arya. And you say so many things that remind me of her. Because she
We probably get
also,
that.
yeah, she hits the gym and she cares and stuff. And she's like, "You want to go to the gym?" And I'm like, "I'm good. I'll just take a bath." Like, have fun
Do
at the
you know what?
gym.
It's a it's a love hate relationship with. I don't go to the gym because there's people there, and I'm not interested in other people making noises and sweating around me again. It's the Dorian Steele show. So I've got a very big TV in my flat. I've got a soundbar, subwoofer. It's connected to the internet. I've got playlists, music. You know what I mean. I've got a pull-up bar in the door frame of the front room. I've got my free weights, my barbell. I can do a lot of those. It's the same. If you've ever seen the film Taxi Driver, those push-ups that he does where he claps, I do those, but like on my knuckles, and I don't
Wow.
clap. Yeah, I can do 80 of those in a row, but I don't look it. But I kind of like that because it's the element of like it's like, oh wow, like he's that like strong. I don't want to look like I don't want to look like a grape. You know what I mean? I don't want to look like I was left underwater for like a year. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But being fit and knowing that I have this muscle and this strength that you can't really tell. I mean, I'm a little bit broader. I remember one time it was a few months after I started. Like, I mean, at the time I started working out, I was working out 7 days a week because I was
Wow.
like, I want to be like strong, and like now it's 5 days a week because I've like made so much progress. But at the time, me and my baby's mother, we were like we were sleeping together, and she had her like hands running up like my sides, and she was like, "You've gotten like wider," and like she said, like you're bigger now, like you're wider, and
Mm.
like I mean the ego boost is insane. There, one can only imagine, but it's like the results of that and the fuel. The thing with with the term narcissistic fuel, it's kind of like I mean, I'll just talk about mine. I can take it or leave it, but I love it.
Yeah.
I don't. Well, it's not like someone like my mother. They like rely on it, and I you know, looking back on memories, like I could see that in her, but I just didn't know what it was quite at the
Yeah.
time, being so
Interesting.
young, and again, not there being any real education. You know, no one gets taught about narcissism or psychopathy when they're in school. Do you know what I mean?
Hmm.
But now I definitely see it. But it's like I don't need excuse me, I don't need your approval. I just, I mean, if you want to give it to me, then great. You know, I'll use that and I'll take that and that'll carry me for the day. But if you don't give me it, then I'm just doing my own thing. I'm in my own head. Uh, you know, it doesn't. I can love it. I go well. I absolutely do love it, but I can take it or leave it, which is a little bit. I mean, hypocritical because I mean, maybe to normal people, because when you love something or when people say they love something, it's like they need it, like kind of like food or air. But with narcissistic supply for me, I don't go out looking for it. I don't really, you know, I just it's not a, you know, I don't keep friends. You know, I've burnt all those bridges. It's that's one of the things. I'll, it's one of the reasons why actually I've decided. I decided about a year ago that I wanted to start therapy, and then for the past nearly a year or so, I've been rejected by almost every therapist in my area and out of it. That's not an understatement. I've made a lot of phone calls, a lot of emails, and they've all amounted to just either, oh, I'll talk to my supervisor, or this, that, and the other, or I'm not qualified enough, and which it's like I don't think they're lying, but it's just, or they've just said, or they've just read my diagnosis because they've read the traits, which I mean, I'll read in a sec now in reference to this, but they've read my
Before,
diagnostic.
yeah, before we get into your therapy and the diagnostic, I think it's interesting what you said about like not needing the kind of narcissistic supply. I kind of feel the same way. Like this is something that I think that we are similar about. Like for instance, if I am playing, I often like playing music. I often kind of take it to a 10. I'm like, let's just give him a
Yeah,
good show or
go for
whatever,
it. Yeah,
get
yeah,
it really
yeah. Go.
hyped. Yeah, like and I love too about I appreciate certain things about people that I admire in music, like their precision, the way they set up a good feel, the way that they're very thoughtful about the way that they place the notes, and I have kind of this aesthetic. So when I'm playing, I'm playing for the audience, but I'm really playing for me because that's my aesthetic is to set up
But
the
in
good
yeah,
feel. Yeah.
yeah, but in turn of that, because you're playing for yourself and you're you, you
Mhm.
want the best out of yourself as possible,
Yes.
which ergo or by proxy by default, that benefits the audience more than if you were trying to play for them, I believe. So
I think so too.
that's the exact approach I'd take. It's like it's all about me, and you're all here for the show. Or there's the exit right there. You can walk out the door. I ain't gonna
Yeah.
look up from my cello. That's exactly the way that like if I that yeah, completely I agree. But
But it's also very gratifying though. I have like 2 more comments. It's also very
go on.
gratifying to have people listen to it and then hear what I'm doing, and then say it back to me, be like, "Wow, you set up such a good feel," or something. Because not just to know that I am being successful, like the feedback does help. I'm doing my best to kind of like self-regulate or have like, to like I know if it's bad or or good, usually my own self, like I don't need the external uh feedback for it. But there's something too about like this sense of belonging. Like if somebody comes up to me and says, it's almost like they're saying we're the same, about this particular thing. They're like, wow, really enjoyed your playing. Like, you do so well setting up a field. And I know like we shared a moment. Like even if we didn't have a conversation during this, like there was something about me that resonated with you. And now you telling me this is like helping me feel like I'm resonating with you too, because you're speaking the same language that I am. We have the same shared values, even if they're not kind of the shared values that most people think about, like, like family values or whatever other type of values. We have like these aesthetic values in which we care about a certain type of craftsmanship and a certain type of thoughtfulness. So that's one thing that I like, when you said you could like take it or leave it, but you love it. I think that's one of the reasons why I love it is because I rarely experience connection with people, especially strangers. I'm not like experiencing empathy. I'm usually not vibing with them. I'm usually not kind of like, oh, strangers, love to be around strangers, feel so connected to them. That's not typically me, but it's so nice then to have an experience where somebody kind of sees me for what I am. And often they see me for what I am because they themselves are that. They have that same kind of value with them. And so I wonder if that's one of the reasons why you say that you love it, but you don't need it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it literally is a case of just like I can take it or leave it. I mean, sharing a connection with others, maybe it's more cognitive, a connection of understanding, um, emotionally. No, that was one thing the mother of my child noticed when we were together. She used to say, Dorian, she said, you have the emotional, she said, you have a swinging brick where your heart is supposed to be. And
Mm.
I always imagine like two
Your
metal
girlfriend,
poles.
yeah, the mother of your child has really good quotes. I like she has like a literary bent about the
Yeah,
way.
yeah, I know she does. She's I mean, she said all kinds, but yeah, she said you've got a swinging brick where your heart's supposed to be. I always imagine like a brick on like two people with like a piece of string on either end going up this way, and then like being on an axis, and then like on like with like on a solid axis like that, and just like a brick swinging back and forth like right
Mhm.
about there. But it doesn't. But the thing is that it didn't bother me. Like I didn't really care, to be honest. I thought she was kind of stupid when she said it. I was like,
Mm,
yeah, that's just stupid. Like, who cares? Like,
mm,
that's exactly what the psychopath says. We don't. It's like, I just think to that, to be
mm.
honest.
Yeah.
But yeah,
So after like 3 years of therapy, I'm gonna try to remember this. I'm gonna ask you the same question about do you feel a sense of connection? Do you think that sense of connection is one of the reasons why you love it? We'll see if your answer has changed. We'll just see. We'll just see.
yeah,
So another thing that I have, and this is my narcissism probably. Uh, there's something too about just beauty, like the beauty, for instance, of this phrase, you have a swinging brick where your heart is. I like that. And I also like when I can be that for people, even if it isn't something that I've chosen, so I think, well, what is it like, something what your mama gave you? Have you heard this phrase, like shake what your mama gave you or whatever, which is like an
yeah, yeah. Shake, well, yeah,
acknowledgement.
I've heard of that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's an inherent acknowledgement that your mama gave you this, not you. It's not yours, but still shake it, you know? That's what you've been given. I like that phrase a lot, "Shake what your mama gave you." Uh, and so too, when like, I remember, I don't usually dress to, like, show off the breasts or whatever, but it's hard to buy a swimming suit that doesn't do that.
yeah.
And so usually I
They
wear
kind of all do that by default.
Yes, usually I wear like a long sleeve sun shirt, so I don't have to put on sunscreen or whatever. But here and there, like I remember one time I'm at like it was actually for my 30th birthday party. I was in Las Vegas with some friends. I was just wearing like a normal swimming suit. I came out of the bathroom or whatever, and some dude was like, "Holy shit." And I was like, "Thank you, guy. I appreciate it. I don't care, but yeah, I get it. They look great or whatever, you know?" So I think this idea of just because it's not something I chose doesn't mean that I'm not kind of grateful for it, that I don't, try to make the most of it. Like I do try to shake what my mama gave me, but I also try to kind of like not make that, I guess, my whole personality is just what my genetics are, like my IQ score or whatever else. I think, these are just things that I am borrowing basically with this body.
Or borrowing, that's, I mean, I'd say, I wouldn't say I'm borrowing them. I'd say like these are mine. That they're from like my darker hair. I mean, like I have like my mother's type of hair where like it's very. I would say like my hair, as a joke, I say my hair has antisocial personality disorder. It's unruly. It does what it wants, and it doesn't feel a damn bit sorry for me. And it's but I know how to tame it. I know how to get it to work. It's actually gone. That's the main thing. Well, it's one of the key concerns that before doing one of these, I'm like, is my hair going to do what it wants? I can't cancel like a month planned Zoom call because my hair is not going the way it wants. And because I'm growing it out long as well, it flicks up at the back like I've been wearing a cap. And, I don't, I mean, I always wear a shirt and tie. You wouldn't see me dead like, with a cap. But it's like the longer I grow it, the more unruly it gets. But I like it long. I like the 70s ish kind of look. That's what
Mm.
I'm going for, I hope. But yeah, no, with borrowing, no, it's like mine. It's like my dark eyes and my dark hair. Like I got it. It's like a picture like a cake, like you go to a birthday party, there's a cake. Somebody else bought the cake, but they give you a slice, and that slice is your slice. This is
Oh,
my. Do you know what I mean? It's
yeah.
part of what was theirs.
Interesting.
That's the way I view it. But
I like
I
that. I
was
really like that birthday cake imagery.
yeah. But I was saying about I was going to read the traits I got diagnosed with. There's a final. They do like a risk assessment and other things like Dorian was orientated to time, place, and person. Cognition. There was no evidence of impaired cognitive behavior. This is still from my mental state examination, which we've started reading from earlier. We have gone off track a lot, but as we always do this. It's like if you're a regular viewer, you should expect this by now. I'm not sorry, but and then they do a big thing. I've highlighted all the key points. I haven't highlighted anything in this risk assessments. Dorian strongly denies any suicidal thoughts. A very brief history of self harm. Blah blah blah. Nothing really like important. And then underneath we have it says here Dorian presents with the following. So these are like the traits. I think I can show you right there. So this is like the list of traits that are
Mm.
like this is what they've like this is what they've seen. Callous and unconcerned for the feelings of others. That's number one. A gross and persistent attitude of irresponsibility and disregard for social norms, rules, or obligations. Basically, just an "I'll do what I want to do" attitude, which is that. I mean, that's going back to like being a kid. That's just
Yeah.
the way that
I will pause
I
you right here. I think more people should be doing this. Like I missed my niece's wedding last week. I did not want to go. I did not go. And I think my dad was like jealous, kind of like, why does she get to do whatever she wants? And I'm like, really, we all can?
yeah, that's funny. It's like she's a sociopath. She can do what she wants, but I can't do what I want. Screw that.
Exactly.
That's funny. I like that. I like that. But the third one was an incapacity to maintain enduring relationships, though with no difficulty in establishing them. That last part has kind of changed a little. It's not, well, it is a difficulty to establish them, and it's not. It's just more now. It's like an I don't. Well, I want to, but I'm too neurotic to do it. And yeah, I've only ever had one long-term relationship. I've had a lot of relationships, very brief, short term. Often, she got boring in the end. Whatever, just stop calling, that kind of thing. Yeah, I've had one. me and the mother of my child, we were together for 3 years, maybe. I don't know. She remembers all this stuff more than me, to be honest. But even like in between then, there was breaks where like she's kicked me out because like like there's been an argument, and I've been kicked out to my mother's, and then I haven't lived with like my family for so many weeks. So like there's been like it hasn't just been like living happy as Larry for 3 years straight, believe you me, like which is again to be expected, I suppose. But a very low tolerance to frustration and a low threshold for the discharge of aggression, including violence. And lastly, the final trait that they identified was an incomplete incapacity to experience guilt or remorse. And that's true. I mean, like I've never had it where I'm about to maybe even say something that's going to upset someone. I mean, maybe if that person, if I'm particularly, if I'm trying to work that person out, I'm trying to work, if there's a goal to that person, I might be more wary of it because I don't want to upset them because maybe you have something I want, or it's good to get to know you because you have good social standing, etc. But generally speaking, if I'm going to say or do something, I don't have that I don't have that feeling or that or even in like my brain most of the time where I'm thinking this is going to upset that person. You shouldn't do that. Maybe maybe I'll think, oh, maybe this person could get upset, but it's weird that that thought enters my mind because it doesn't mean squat to me. I'm just like whatever, and
Mm.
I'll just go about it my own way. But yeah, I've never had to worry about you know, like I know I can always sleep comfortably at the end of the night, and it ain't gonna make a bit of difference to me what's happened really. I've never, I would never be one of these people who like you see in movies or like TV shows like Breaking Bad where like you've got it like I've got like a character. He's up late at night, or he's pretending to sleep, and there's like they're staring at the wall. Like I'm not like I ain't worrying. I'm not worrying at all. I'm just again sort of plodding along and doing my thing. But not yeah. So with the diagnosis at the time, I got offered help seeking therapy. And I mean this is literally during the appointments. And she said, and I said, I'm not here for therapy. I said, I don't need therapy at all. I said, I'm fine. I said, I'd just like to, I just need you to assess me and read what I've recorded of myself and what I've discovered and see if it correlates with an ASPD diagnosis. Like I think so, which turns out it does. And a few months after this, I sort of was thinking about it and I thought, do you know what? I thought logically, because I'm always like in the logical, I'm like, probabilities and outcomes and the likelihood of so and so forth. And I thought, if I don't go to therapy, I'll always be this way. And like I struggle to keep a job. Like the job I've got now is it's the longest I've ever had a job, and it's only been a year. That's not really long. Job to job to job. Um, Quite financial, in fact, very financially irresponsible. I did it. It was earlier this year. Well, a couple of years ago, I borrowed money from the government, and I just didn't pay it back. And then it's like 2 years later this year, I got a letter through my door saying that I owed the government £1,000, and I thought it was a scam at first, but it looked to be legitimately from the from the HMRC. So I thought it was a mistake because I'd forgotten about this money. I rang them up and I was like, I swear, I was like, I don't need this in my life. I was angry when I opened the letter. I was like, this has angered me now. Like I've got to like be in like, I've got to be on hold and all of the, nobody likes ringing up like the social or anything like that. So I rang them up and I'm ready to go. So I'm fuming. I'm ready to just have to go and go. He said, and rang up, gave the details, explained what the letter was, and whoever it was I spoke to did some tippy tapping on the computer. And they said, oh, you took out 2 loans between so and so date and this and that and the other date. And I was there for a second, and I was like, yeah, I did. And it's just, again, it's those pesky darn consequences coming back, with all these things. So there's these things that I'm financially irresponsible. I have no trust mechanism. I have no social circle, and other people get to have a social circle. So why the hell don't I? That's one gripe that I've got with the world at the moment, if you will. And I thought, and then immediately therapy came to mind, and I was like, probably going to have to do some therapy. And so went on a long search for a therapist. I found a therapist who, well, I had an appointment with a therapist not long ago, and she was very professional, polite, courteous, inquisitive, she had all the right qualities of a therapist. She's not in the wrong profession by any means or any stretch of the imagination, but the therapy she specializes in is called internal family services therapy. And I'd never heard of that before. So I Googled IFS for ASPD. There was no results. I also tried other words like psychopathy, but couldn't find any results on it. So I was like, right, well, I'm not too confident in that, but she's the only therapist who has even agreed to give me a chance. So beggars can't be choosers. This is like literally the only therapist. But so I went to that appointment, so we talked, and she asked a lot of questions, things like that. But with IFS, it's more to get into touch with a sense of self and to your emotions, and that's not what I want therapy for. I don't really, to be honest, I don't care about any of that stuff. Again, it doesn't keep me up at night. Nothing does. I just want to be able to function in I just need to tweak some little noses, some levers, so to speak, some mechanics in the working that is Dorian Steel. Do you know what I mean? I don't need to like get in touch with my feelings, and no thanks. I'm not really. I ain't for that. That just ain't a bit of me. But we had the appointments. It was great, but there was one other therapist that I'd rang months before her, and I won't say her name. And she said she was a CBT therapist, which is what I was looking for, long term, face to face, in like an office, a professional setting. It was the therapist that I saw like last week. It was at her house, which is like, she's got a very nice house, so she's got a room like where she does therapy with like chairs and cushions, all that jazz. You get the picture. And through like sheer coincidence, I found the phone number for the first therapist who said that she would see me. But one thing that I wanted to do was that I wanted to record my therapy sessions with a DSLR camera. I bought a camera, I've got a tripod and everything. But the first therapist said that she said she doesn't personally have a problem with being on camera, but she said the camera's going to feed into your ego, so it's going to affect the therapy. So I was on the phone with her, I biting my lip, and I was like, she's right. I can't argue with her. Like she is right. It will. That's not what it's there for. But yeah. So she was like, I don't know. I wouldn't let you record them. So I was like, okay. And then I left it, and I lost the number. Well, now I found the first therapist's phone number again, recontacted her, jogged her memory. I said, I'm the gentleman who said, Dorian. So when I told her my diagnosis, she remembered me. She was like, oh yeah. She was like, oh, I remember you. And but she was professional, polite. I said to her, look, we don't have to record the sessions. I said, you're literally the only CBT therapist that will see me. Can we book something in? So I'm booked in for my first session with her. It comes on the 18th of October. So the 18th of October, know that I am starting therapy. Well, but there's a catch. I had to get her to come around to it because she was still like a little bit hesitant. And she said to me, she said, we can do a first session, same hourly rate as for normal, a 1 hour session. I wouldn't go past an hour in therapy. I don't want to spend over an hour in therapy. And you know what I mean? I'll just be like, right, I'm getting up now. I've had my fill. But she said to me it won't be a therapy session as such when we start, but she wants to do it's like more an appointment where we lay the we lay the groundwork and the foundation for a therapy patient relationship, because she said to me, look, you know, you told me some things about your past, your personal history. She said, I need to think of myself. So she said, when we have our first therapy session appointments, it will be a case of, you know, I'll be giving her a copy of my diagnosis. She can read, ask me questions, blah, 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 whatever she wants, and go over the details, you know, go over the, you know, various test results for tests for psychopathy that I've done. You know, I've said I'll bring all of this round on my DSM. It's not an issue. But she also wants to, she said, we have to establish clear boundaries. She said, I have to have boundaries with you, Dorian. I said to her, I mean, again, it's annoying, but she's right, because, and I did tell her, you know, my baby's mother mentioned to me in the past, she's like, you don't really care about other people's boundaries. The words the words no mean nothing to you. Do you know what I mean? It's just like you've got to be very. It's not that they don't mean anything. It's just that if it's not explicitly made um, clear to me, like if you've got a bag, I'm not going to have a problem with someone having a boundary. I don't take that as a slight against me, but it's just that if you don't make it clear to me, I'm going to walk over that boundary, because I'm so. It's like how you talk in the interviews for psychopathy is about guilt. Like, you know, we're blind to it. We don't see it. I don't see the boundary. It's just all. It's non-existent. I'm just walking right over it like a blind man waving his cane. It's just it's there, but I don't see it. If you point it out, then I can go, okay. So I said, you know, I said, look, I said, I'm not there to break any boundaries. You know, I want therapy. I'm not just trying to mess with you. You know, we want to go over goals as well for therapy, like the ones I just mentioned. You know, because I see people that are, like even having friends, because the thing is when you have, I mean, I've had friends in the past, but it's just gotten to the point where it's kind of like, it's like, what's the point? It always breaks down. So like, I've been worn down by my many attempts at attempting friendship, because I want long-lasting friends. I don't want to be friends with someone for a month or even a year. You know what I mean? But no, I like trust. Trust and reliability are very admirable traits, and I think those should last a lifetime. But the problem is that I've got more personally to me is that being someone's friend alone, you're trusting that person to be into your life, like for anything at all. So if you have no trust mechanism, how do you physically or well, yeah, you physically cannot even make a friend. Well, you can make a friend, but it's not going to last very long. Or people will. I mean, I've found like when I've done community service before, I'm always I get along with like I never have problems on community service. Like I'll get along with. I mean, naturally there's that criminal elements. You know what I mean? Like I always say, you can take the kid out of the street, but you can't take the street out of the kid. So you know what I mean? Like I mix well with criminal types. You know what I mean? But I also like the supervisors for community service. Like they love me as well. I'll often like I would I'm on a I'm on a community sentence now. I'm on probation for 2 counts of possession of an illegal weapon. Basically, what's happened is, very long story short, I'll be able to talk a lot more of it in the future due to legalities and being on probation, blah blah. But an illegal weapon came to the UK Border Force with my address on it, and so a warrant was executed on my flat whilst I was in work, which I'm very thankful for, because if I had been here, judging from what the lady who lives below me told me, it would have been one hell of a scene. And we don't have time to go into all of that. But basically, a warrant was executed on my flat. My flat got tipped upside down whilst I was in work. I was arrested after work, but I made sure so basically when they've been in the flat, they found a switchblade. It had like a push button where the blade came up out the handle. which is just flat out illegal in this country. But it also had a knuckle duster on the handle, so you could like you could hit someone with it. And I was just getting these weapons for fun, like to collect. They're not bought with like a malicious intent towards anyone. And I also had a spring loaded, button activated, like a police stick, like the 3-pole baton. And that was a nice bit of kit. Carbon fiber steel. You could easily beat a man to death over the head with that. Especially if you're strong like I am, you wouldn't not have a problem with it. That was a fine bit of kit, and they sucked it so hard that they took it. But what are you gonna do? You're breaking the law. You're gonna get caught, aren't you? So I got a phone call as I was finishing work about an hour before, and I'm in work in the smoking area, sat with everyone, and I'm getting a phone call from the police. I'm like, what's this about? Because I'd ordered the weapon that they found. I'd ordered it like 2 months beforehand and just forgot about it. Do you know what I mean? And it was actually a suspected firearm. But so it's like I've never known anyone who buys a gun illegally online and then forgets about it. But that's how much I care or don't care, however you want to word it. But so I got nicked, and I made sure, because where I work, there's like people will gossip. There's a lot of gossip talk, and I'm not interested in any of that. I'm not even interested in spreading gossip. Do you know what I mean? I just like get along with everyone, and I do my job, and it's straight as a nut, and it's simple as that. So I said to the copper said to me, look, we've got a warrant for your arrest. We've got a warrant for your flat. We've executed it. So I'm like, great, I've got no front door, and I'm due a nicking, and my flat's been turned upside down, and the coppers have probably been underneath my bed, and they've probably found the weapons, which they did. And so I said, I was finishing work at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I was finishing work. I've been working like from the 6 in the morning till 2 in the afternoon. So I was like, right, I need to coordinate this in a way that like works for me. So I said, look, I finished work at 2. Can you come and nick me at 2:15 outside so and so? It was like outside like a chicken place, I think, or something. But you know what I mean? It's like it was like a sort of kind of buy a big shopping centre, and I made it there just in time. And they said to me, we'll send a car around, but they brought this like in one of the yellow police riot vans, because because I'm registered as a violent male, because I've been done before. Do you know what I mean? So like if you call the police and you go, I'll Dorian Steele's just like, I would never do this where you say Dorian Steele's just like snatched an old lady's purse. That name will flag up, and you can't have just like one officer come out on their own. There's got to be like two. If you ever call the cops on me, 2 or 3 of them come out, usually in a yellow van with riot gear, just in case. But whenever I've been nicked, I'm like, they love me. I'm super polite. I even made a joke. When it was 3 guys, it was 3 male officers that got out of this. We call them Matrix vans around here, and so they get out the Matrix van. The Matrix van pulls up, and 3 coppers get out, and it's broad daylight, so like everyone's looking at this guy in like a black suit and tie getting nicked at 2 in the afternoon. You know what I mean? It's a bit of a scene kind of a thing, but it's all calm, and everyone's chill. And these 3 male coppers get out, and I went. So they said to me, "Oh, Mr. Steele, we've received intel about a package containing a suspected firearm and ammunition." Blah blah blah. And I said, "All right, okay." And I said, "It's a shame, though." And they said, "What's a shame?" I said, "I was hoping a couple of good-looking birds in uniform would come and put me in handcuffs." And they weren't like they loved it. They were like laughing their heads off and everything. They were like, "Oh, like." Because normally, like, especially around here, there's a lot of drugs, a lot of alcoholism. So they've got to deal with, like, drunkards taking swings at them. But then, like, I'm just making a joke trying to lighten the mood, because I know when I go into custody, Nick, it will benefit me. Do you know what I mean? And like, I don't hold anything against, they're just doing their job at the end of the day. They're the good guys. I'm the bad guy. It is what it is. And, I've been nicked before. And so they took me round to the local jail, and they painted it like when I was last there before this one. it was all like brown, and it was just it was proper dingy. It was like dingy old jail. And but like you go into the holding, call it the holding bay, and it's like it's just a room with a bench along the wall that way, and there's usually some like meathead sat at the other end, and you know you just there has never been a word spoken in that room ever. I swear. Do you know what I mean? Like you sit there in silence. Screw will like come to like the other door at the end and be like, right, we've got a room, a cell's free, and then so you go in, go through all the booking process, and you know they take like my cufflinks and my tie and my belt, and so and my trousers. Right, I asked to keep. It was stupid, but I had to ask. I asked for them to keep my belt because the trousers that I was wearing were like 2 inches too big at the waist. So I had to walk to the cell with like just holding my trousers, just looking like an idiot. You know what I mean? But and they said, "Is there anything?" You know, I gave all my stuff, and they were like, is there anything that you've got to say?" And because the first time I ever got nicked, I never got. I was in jail. I was there for 24 hours, and all I had was cups of water, and it ain't fun. It really isn't fun. My hack is to sleep through it. So it's like I know I've got my routine in my head. Do you know what I mean? And so I said, right. I want my sausage beans. I think they give you've got two options around here. And it's like sausage, beans, and mushrooms, and I don't like mushrooms, so I think I threw them in the loo. But they got beans, sausage, mushrooms, and that might maybe like an egg, but it's like it literally looks like it's got all the grease on the top and the fat, and you've got to like it's not. But apart from that, it's all right. So I'm just like, you know, I had my grub. I said I also want my Bible as well, and I was reading chapters from the book of John. So I'd read like a chapter of John, 50 push-ups, chapter of John, 50 push-ups, and I got to 500 push-ups, and I was like, right, I'll go for a nap now. So, and that's just that's the trick when you're in custody. Just sleep through it. It doesn't matter. You're not going to get, you know, reprimanded if they have to wake you up for your interview or whatever. Psychiatrist came to my cell to examine me. That was kind of fun because because my trousers were too big. I took off my shirt and my trousers, so I was just in like my socks and boxers. And it was a woman, and she opened the slat of the door, and she was like, "All right, Dorian," and I said, "Yeah, you okay?" And I went because I know you're not supposed to go up to the door, but you know obviously for their safety. And I go up to the right up to the door. I just want to see if she's gonna like tell me to step back, or like how stern is she gonna be. I want to know who I'm dealing with, and that's a good way of knowing. So I go right up to the slat, and she goes, "Would you mind just stepping back just a bit, please, just for my safety?" So I was like, "Okay." So step back, but like as we're talking, again, it's just like I'm a sociopath. I'm bored. I'm in this tiny little room, and you're coming to my door asking me questions. Like I'm playing again. Like I just want to mess with you just for like 5 minutes, if that just makes me laugh or whatever. So as she's like talking to me, and like I'm kept away from the door, I'm just like slowly like creeping closer, and she like I saw it in her eyes that she sort of realized I was like right up close, but it was like too late almost. But then she also realized like he's not doing me any harm, but he's like right up, like looking me dead in the eye. And she even said to me, she was like, "You make a lot of eye contact, don't you?" And I just nodded like, "Yeah." And then she went away, and so I went back to sleep. And then I got woken up by the DCs. I got woken up by a screw because the DCs don't come to your cell until afterwards. So you know, a copper comes and locks my door, and he's like, "Right, Mr. Steele, you know, this way." Walk me down to the interview room, I sit in, and they go, "Right, wait there." And then two DCs come in. And I remember the thing is with me, again, this is probably more than narcissism playing up, but I always look at people's clothes and shoes, and you know, do they look like they moisturize and things like that. Like I'm always like, you know, comparing myself. And I was weirdly enough, I was wearing this exact shirt, and I was wearing this exact suit, except I was wearing my black wide tie. I wasn't wearing this tie, but I was wearing this exact suit. I kid you not, coincidence much. I wasn't even planning on telling this story, but I remember I looked at my shirt, and I looked at it was one of the DC shirts. I looked at his shirt, and I went, I went, my shirt's way nicer than your shirt. There's no way you are sending me to prison. And it's like, that's such a weird motivation to have for, or like such a weird thing to spur you on to not go to jail rather than not commit the crime itself in the first place, which my baby's mother said should have been the incentive or the incentive. But like, it's obviously it's not going to be, and it still isn't. You know, I haven't really. I wouldn't say I've learned a lesson per se, but we'll get to that. So I had my interviews with the DCs, my interview, and I'm not gonna. Uh, it went the way that I wanted it to go. That's how I'll word it. It went the way that I wanted to go. I admitted to the charges, but that doesn't mean that I can't word things a certain way, which we're all entitled to do legally. And I'll let your imagination run wild with that. But so like I'm like, every time I've had it where I've been interviewed by the DCs, like it's one of the best feelings in the world when they open the door and they're like, right, okay, go back to yourself, and you just know you've got that upper hand because yeah, I mean, like I'm literally like I'm like walking like that down the landing. You know what I mean? Like that, because I always go in they've always put me in the wing that's like opposite the reception directly. So I'm like I've got the reception to my right, and it's like in a sci-fi film. It's like a big round desk like that, and all computers and everything's computers now. Even the way they do your fingerprints is on a computer. They don't use ink pad anymore, and it's a really expensive machine, and it's terrible, but it's one of them. So I had my interview. I was like, yeah, great, and all of that. I knew I was good. I mean, I knew I was probably looking at going to prison because attempted possession of I was looking at two charges: possession of an illegal weapon, which right a year at most in prison, but attempting to possess a firearm, and there was also 2 rounds of ammunition in the package. That's some heavy birds. Do you know what I mean? That is some heavy bird that you're doing. I was looking at, I was look, excuse me, I contacted various like lawyers, solicitors. Why? Oh yeah, I thought about messaging you, but but you're in America, so the law's different. I was about to say why didn't I think to talk to you, but then I thought of it, and yeah. So I realised I was probably looking at 6 to 8 years. You know, previous convictions as well, known to police, and all of that in the past. So I'm like, yeah, things probably aren't looking good. But again, you know, they let me out of I was never. I'll get back to the story. So, but I wasn't nervous or nothing. Like I never lost a wink of sleep, or I never even had a shred of anxiety over any of this. And it's like I could lose everything. But we'll get to that. So I had my interview, back to my cell, and then you've got to wait a few more hours because it's on like a queue. You know, like when you're in a queue for like say you're waiting to talk to the DMV or whoever. You know, you're the fifth in line, and then you're the fourth in line. Well, it's like that in custody suite, because you know they can only hold you so long. So you know, gets up to my turn pretty quickly as well. I was in. They I've got into holding about 3 o'clock. I was out by, I mean, like I was in my flat by about 7 or 8 o'clock at night. Like that's I was, which is good because I was working. Like I was like, I've got to be up at 4. And one of the things, like I even so I got to walk back to my cell, and because the weapon was ordered online through the internet, they seized my phone, you know, to like go through like my order history and all of that, which is like, I mean, I'm not. I mean, it was more annoying that I didn't have a phone. I'm not worried that they've got my phone and that you know they asked you for the pin, gave them the pin, gave them the genuine pin as well, and I was like, I need to figure out a way to get my phone back because I'm skint. Now I'm probably looking at a lot of bird, and I've got no phone, and I like my music, so I was like, what's a way I can get my phone back quicker? And mental health is just such a good manipulator for anything. I mean, it's a square peg that fits in all holes. So I said to the DC as he was walking me back to my cell, I said, look, I said, I'm not being funny. I said, I tried to kill myself a month ago. This isn't true, by the way. I have no thought. I do not self harm. I do not plan to kill myself. I'm sound as can be. This is what I said to the DC. I said, look, I said I tried to kill myself a month ago, and you know, I'm putting on like the depressive affect, and you know, I'm playing the part. And I said I have recordings of my son and music on my phone that I need to listen to, otherwise I'll feel suicidal, and I might try and do something again. And like I'm in long sleeves, so I know he's not looking at my arm, so I'm like I'm getting away with this. And he felt so, and I'm saying this to him like through, so he's keyed the door on me when I'm talking through the slat at this point, and I'm like dead looking him in the eye, like, please feel sorry for me. Like, just give me my phone so I've got all my stuff and my, you know, my online banking and my emails for work and what have you. And he says to me, he says, right, he goes, first thing tomorrow morning, Dorian, he said, I'm gonna go straight in. He said, I'll fill out, he told me the name of the form, like a PB, blah, blah, whatever. He said, I'll fill all the form in so that they check your phone. So your phone is priority, and I'll tell them it's a mental health concern and blah blah, all of that, suicide risk, what have you. But, and I was like, I mean, this was like and I was like, in my head, I'm like, am I really going to do this? I was like, I'm going to do this. I stuck my hand out of the cell door, like through the slat to him, like open palm like that. And I said, officer, I said, thank you, because I'd managed to convince him that it wasn't my fault, even though it was. So I stuck my hand through the door, and I said, officer, I said, thank you so much for everything. I said, I understand you're only doing a job. And he shook my hand. He, he shook my hand through the door, and it's like they don't, like they didn't even check my socks or like the waistband of my body. Like I could have cut that man's wrist clean open if I wanted to. And I mean, the buzz, I mean, like, it's just a simple handshake to him. But to me, I'm like, you idiot. I'm like, you actually, like, you shook a prisoner's hand through the door. What were you, like, thinking? And it's like, you know what I mean? So, anyway, so that happens, get me door shut. And I'm like, I think I'd done like one or two more sets of push ups. I was knackered at this point. And then eventually they go, right, you go steal, you know, go and collect your things. So I collect the things. I'm an unconditional, what do they call it? Un, it's not probation, unconditional release, something like that. It's like you're pending, you know, you have no bail, unconditional bail. You'd think that I'd know that off the top of my head by now, but yeah, it was on unconditional bail. They said you'll get sent a letter when you're. Oh no, they told me. They said we've got a date for you to appear back here to find out whether you'll be charged. And like normally you just receive a letter in the post any old given day. So I was like, oh, so I've got to come back here to find out if I get charged. And they said, yeah. So I was like, okay, so get my letters, get my tie bar, get my cufflinks, blah, 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 get it all done up. And basically, so little pin in that flashback. When I come into the reception, so that's past holding. So I've been through holding. When I'm on my way to reception or walking past the desk to get my things, there was this like beautiful policewoman, and I mean like beautiful, not particularly my type, but not far off. You know, like blonde hair. She was like looking smart and lovely. And like I gave her like a wink, and she didn't like it. She did not like it at all. She was like very like, you know, like angry, strict, and like she just didn't like it at all. And but I was just like I love the attention anyway, so it's like, you know, it was just funny to me. I didn't care whether she liked it or not. That's not why I did it. I'm just trying to provoke reaction. And so on the way out, we go into because when they search my flat, you know, like they have like these like smartphones for the police. I get told that when we're on the way out to the car park, the copper says to me, I'll give you a lift home. I'm like, what? Because they're not a taxi service, you know what I mean? And he goes, yeah, he goes, my colleague says that she's left her smartphone in your flat. She says she's lost it whilst they're searching your flat. I said, well, it's not a massive place. She said, and, you know, I get a free ride. I'm like, cheers, you know what I mean? It saves me having to walk back. And so it's difficult to get a taxi around that time as well, especially in like that area. So we're in but as we're walking out, I see the same woman who I winked at before, the same police lady. And like I raised my eyebrows to her again. I didn't wink at her, but like I raised my eyebrows and like smiled. And again, she didn't say anything again, but again, like she was like clearly it had gone under her skin. And I was sat in the back of the car because he wouldn't let me sit in the front. I asked if I could sit in the front. He said, no, I can't do that. He said, you have to sit in the back. So I was like, all right, I'll sit in the back, whatever. And I'm sat in the back of the police car and I'm like, I'm not done with that policewoman yet. I'm like, I've got to say something that I know he's going to bring up to her. So I said to him, I said, excuse me. I said, do you know that police lady who we walked past on the way to getting in here? And he said, yeah. I said, I know this sounds silly, but I swear she's into me. I said, I swear she like, I can't even get it out. But I was like being very like sincere. I said, I swear like she had a thing for me. I said, um, and my master plan was that he'll obviously remember that, and then he'll see her when I'm in my flat, tidying up after they've been through. And my plan in my head was, oh, he'll go back to the station and he'll tell her, and it'll wind it up even more, but she won't be able to do anything about it. That was my plan. And this woman hadn't said anything at all, but I just wanted to she was very beautiful and I couldn't have her, so I wanted to provoke her. I think that's what was going on up there anyway. And so, what does the copper do? He goes, oh, I can find out for you now. Uh, they wear like a walkie-talkie on their vest, and he's going, oh, he goes, what's her number? And he tried their badge. I think it's their badge number or whatever it is, and tries a number and he gets it wrong, and then he tried it again, got it wrong, and I'm like, please get it wrong. I was like, so he radioed her eventually on the third or fourth try, radioed her, and he was like, I don't remember what her name was, but he's like, all right, Nicole, and whatever, and he goes, is that you there? And she goes, yeah, it's me. You all right? And he goes, that lad that I've just been walking out with just to the car. He's saying that you fancy him, and she immediately straight away the static from the radio went off, and she went no like she probably lost her cool on the radio. She was going no I don't, you shouldn't be saying that, why is she saying that? And I burst out, I lost it at that point. So I just burst out laughing and threw my arms back. It was the heart. That and the interview, they were the two highlights of the day. That and the interview with the DC. But it was just the whole thing is just like a game with me. Like right from the moment you pick me up to the end of it, it's fun. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'd recommend go crazy one night. If you've never been arrested before, just go through the experience, live it. You can say you can say you've done it. I mean, I'm not saying go out and murder anybody, but just maybe, I don't know, hit someone, do something, try and procure an illegal weapon maybe, or maybe just don't pay a parking fine. Get a parking fine intentionally and just don't pay it. I definitely, it's an interesting experience to have, but and it's like whilst I enjoy it, I need to remember like I need to be more responsible now, and I know eventually. So anyway, I've got home. My flat was turned upside down. I'm like, no phone. Pulled the soundbar out the TV because they were searching for like other firearms and things like that, and they didn't find any because there were none. And so this was in the August, was it? I got nicked in the August last year. I got nicked it was a few weeks before we did our first ever video. So when I'm in that video, I'm basically staring down the barrel of an 8-year sentence, essentially. And it was December the 24th, I got the letter in the post saying it said you have been charged with the offences discussed in your interview. There was no new offences added. So I was under the impression that I was like, right, I've been charged with attempting to possess the gun and the ammunition and the two already possessed illegal melee weapons. So I'm like, right, I need to think about, money. What am I going to do about my possessions? So like my whole flat for months was just labeled. There was labels everywhere. And like I had a dirty clothes bag ready, and I'd sorted out something with my baby's mother. Um, and it's like, oh, money's going to the bank on this day, blah, blah, blah. And I got to, so I don't know how it works in over your side of the pond, but over here we have two court hearings for like what for a case. So you go up first to enter your plea. It doesn't matter, by the way. I should stress whether it's again like you fail to pay a parking fine or you murder 100 children. Like no matter how like what the crime is, whether it's category A like murder, rape, like child abuse, whatever, or whether it's a category C, which is like not paying a fine for like littering or whatever, like the minimal risk to society. You always go to a magistrate's court first to enter a plea, and then from there it gets decided. Is it category A or is it serious enough to go to Crown Court? And then if it's like a serious murder, you'll go to Crown Court after that. But you always have to go through the magistrates. So I go to magistrates, and I didn't like I was like, I'm not going to hire a solicitor because I don't need one. Like I know the law, I know how I'm going to present myself, I know I can represent myself, and I know that I can win this case just fine on my own. And that's exactly what I plan to do. But the by sheer fate, the solicitor who represented me in my first case, which was a criminal damage one when I was 19, she was there doing litigation, like on retainer for the court, and I didn't recognize her. So this again, it's like this good-looking solicitor. And she was like, "Oh, I Dorian, you're in today for 3 o'clock, whatever it was. I think it was in the morning actually. Might have been an earlier one, but she said you're in for such and such time. She said, "Do you want to come in the back and like talk to me for a bit?" And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, oh, yeah, I'm still going to represent myself. But yeah, sure, like we can talk for 10 minutes and break the boredom. So we go in. I'm nice and polite. I'm like, how are you doing? All of that, pull a chair up for her, what have you. And she goes to me, she goes, "Oh, wow, you've grown your hair out." I said, "Do you know me?" And she said, "Yeah." She explained who she was. She said, "I represented you when you were a skinhead." She said, "You had a shaved head." And she was like, "Look at you in a suit and tie." And I was like, "Oh, yeah, thanks." I was like, "I'm kind of grown out of that old stuff now." And then she opens her laptop, gets my case up. And she goes, "So you're facing two charges today?" I said, "No, no." I said, "Do you mean I'm facing two types of charges?" And she said, "No, no." She's on my computer here. It just says 2 counts of possession of an illegal weapon. I said, "Yeah." I said, "But what about the charge of attempted possession of a firearm? The big one that's going to probably put me behind bars for like just under a decade. That's kind of more than what I'm concerned with." And she's going through her laptop and she's going, "I don't see it. I don't see it." I said, "You've got an error in your paperwork there." I pulled the letter out to say, "Look, I've got this charge here." And it had a note on the bottom of her files on her laptop. It said, "Previous suspected charge of attempted possession of a firearm." But what they do is if you get caught with a grenade or a gun or whatever, the police they take it to a firing range, and they've got to test that weapon. And because for them to be able to charge you with the offence, the weapon has to be capable of firing a deadly or lethal projectile. Well, through a sheer miracle, God knows. I mean, only the Lord knows how. I mean, and I'm saying that with full sincerity here. Through some sheer miracle, they tested this gun and it didn't fire. So, I've just been looking at like 8 years bird drop down to like a year in prison. I'm like, sweet. I'll be out in like 4 or 5 months. I'll mock the landing, do the library. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just like, I'm actually like internally, I'm like feeling excited. I'm like, boom. I'm like, yes, let's do it. Bolt of lightning. And I was wearing navy blue trousers with a pink shirt. I was wearing what I'm wearing in my second video, if you've already seen that. A bow tie, a navy blue bow tie to match the trousers with daffodils, all these big thick braces that I have with like daffodils on them. and like an orangey sandstone kind of coloured corduroy blazer. It's like a proper 70s blazer with like these big, like they call like football buttons, stuff like big leather footballs, and well, like cut in half kind of, and with a navy blue waistcoat. So and this is just like magistrates court. Do you know what I mean? Like most people turn up in a tracksuit, and like I'm looking like I just waltzed out of the 1970s, and so I walked into the court, and well before that, my solicitor said to me, she said, "Is there anything that you don't want them to know about you?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "Do they have access to mental health records?" She said, "Probation does, but not the judge, and then probation will let the judge know if there's anything concerning." And I was like, "Right, okay." I said, "Well," I said, "I'm diagnosed on the NHS as having antisocial personality disorder." And as soon as I finished my sentence, she went, "Right, okay." She was like, she knew. I could tell that she knew what that was, and she was like, "Right, yeah, okay, we need to like keep that like quiet." So so I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." I know what to do. I said, "I've been here before, so you've seen me put on an act." And she's like, "Yeah." And so I'm like, "Right, let's do this." And we go into the court, and like, I know where everything is. Do you know what I mean? So I go in the podium, and they're like, "Is your name Dorian Steele, birthday, blah, blah, blah." Yeah, 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 confirm it all. And so the prosecution went over the case details. Weapon was addressed, intercepted by UK Border Force, handed over to police, blah, blah, blah. And then my solicitor stood up, gave her defense for me. And at the end, she said to the judge, she looked at him like dead in the eye and said, "Your Honour," said, "I actually represented Mr. Steele several years ago, when he was like young and jobless and didn't have any direction in life. And we've given, and since then he's had no, well, she said he's had no previous connections to criminality," which is like, I mean, like, not recorded, you know what I mean? Not on file, I don't, but and and then she said, "And we've given him time, and there's been times, or he's had a lot of time to change." And she looked the judge in the eye and said, "In your Honour, I can tell you now with all sincerity, he has changed." And the judge just went like that because he wasn't expecting her to like go into like mine and hers personal history, but it worked like a treat. And when we got out of the court, well, they said something to me. They said, "Mr. Steele, they said you'll be given a date to appear." I had to go to, because I live in the northwest region of England, so I got a date for Liverpool Magistrates Court, and so they sent that to me in the post. And the judge said to me, like, one of the judges even smiled when I walked in the room. She was like a little old lady, but she saw the way I was dressed, and she was like, "Oh," like she just like she let out a smile. I smiled right back at her, so I was like, "I've got this." And they said to me, "Yeah, we'll see you on such and such date." And I said, "Thank you, Your Honour." And I'm like, I'm all buttoned up and all done. And but my solicitor, she sat over there, and she lets out like a little like that. And like I give her a death stare, and I'm like, "What are you like? Like you can't just be like laughing. Like they're gonna be thinking, what's she laughing at?" But like I'm trying to put on the game here, and she actually like we all like surely they must have heard it. It was a loud, like a very stifled laugh. But and then coming up to the time where I was due to appear at my sentencing, so I've entered my plea. They've asked me my plea. I've pled guilty, and comes up to my sentencing. And during that time, I was like, I tried at first to have it so that my son, I tried to get my baby's mother to bring my son. I said, "Bring our son into court," because I said he looks just like me, and it'll be like the classic pull on the heartstrings. And you always see it in like soap operas and stuff, but it's actually not. It's against the law. Nobody under the age of 18, unless they're like a witness, to a case, as you'll know. But nobody under the age of 18 can go to a court sentencing. So I was like, damn it. I was like, what am I going to do? I need something. I need something about me that says, like, look at me. I'm needed. I'm needy. And I was in the supermarket one day and I saw this gentleman, and he had a green lanyard with sunflowers all down it. And it's what people who are like, well, technically who are neurodivergent wear, but it's more typically for people not with psychopathy, but with autism and things like that. And it had it was like a lanyard with a big card on it that said, "I have autism and my name is whatever." And I looked at that and I was like, "I need one of them." I was like, "I need one of them." So, and anyone can buy one. So I ordered one online, and I even got a personalized a card, and like big. I've still got it, and it says I have autism, and then on the back it's got my pseudonym Teddy Bateman instead of my real name, just as like a sort of like like a middle finger, because I know they're never going to check it. And I didn't wear it walking to court because I don't like appearing as vulnerable normally, but I'm like, in this case I've got to appear to the judge. So like I had it in my pocket. I wore the same outfit that I wore to entering my play as well, the exact same outfit, but like this was several months later, or 2 months later actually. So I'm sat in the waiting room, and like I've had like a pre-sentencing litigation with my solicitor. She's like, "Look, so because you're like a previous violent offender, they wanted to put on me an SH, a serious harm prevention order. They call it a shop order, where it's like basically any time you're out and about, you can be stopped and searched, and you can't refuse." And I'm like, "It's not a bad thing. Like, I don't really care about being stopped and searched." And like, I don't carry drugs. I don't carry weapons when I'm outside. I just like to collect them, or I did like to at least, before they all got took. And and she said, "Well, it looks bad legally." So I was like, "Right." I said, "Well, we don't want that then." I said, "We got to get rid of that." And so she was like, "Yeah, we're going to work on it." And she said, "I'll argue against it because of the technicalities in the law, which I won't go into." But so she goes like, "Right, go sit back down. I'll let you know when we're due in." So I was like, "Sweet, okay." So 15 minutes goes by, or not, probably not even that. And then she comes out and she goes, "Dorian, we're ready." And I pulled the lanyard out of my pocket, like the autism one, and I put it around my neck. I went, "Let's do this, go on." And I was just like, it's just like, it's weird because like the chips were really down, like you're looking at a year in prison, like you're not in a good position. But I was so confident. I was, and it was really hard to contain it. Like I've got to I'm like thinking to myself, I'm like, "Right, push your chest in a little bit, mate. Like you can't be walking." You know what I mean? But and you go in and I swear this is designed to induce like stress. But the way that so you go in like the dock, and it's literally like a room with a big glass surface like around you, and the when you're like you sit down during the like all the reading out and all of that, but then at the end you've got to stand up. But when you stand up, the glass is literally like right there, like next to your face, and the edge of the seat is like pushing into the back of your knees. And I remember being stood there like with this big ridiculous green thing around my neck. I remember being stood there thinking, this is definitely like designed on purpose to induce stress in people there. Like there's like I'm thinking like Chinese torture tactics and everything. But I ended up getting a community order. The shop order didn't get stuck. Um, I had to pay prosecution costs. So I had to pay the people who were paid to like stick it on me. And get this, I had to pay a victim surcharge, which is normally only applied when like say I've hit you in the street and I get done for that, and a victim surcharge, that section of the court fine will go to like charities that are like knife crime, gun crime. They gave me a victim surcharge on my fine. I'm the victim in this. I'm the one who's been nicked. I'm the one who's had to like basically lie to the landlord about why my door's been kicked through so we can claim the insurance. I'm the one who's had I had a hunting knife at the time that was legal, fixed blade, everything. They took that they took the hunting knife, claiming it was a zombie knife, which is like a type of knife that is illegal now in this country. And I'm the one who you're fining. I'm the only victim in this is me, and you're fining me a victim surcharge. So yeah, and then I got at the court fine, a year's probation, which I'm technically still on now until January the 28th. That's when that ends. So I'll be celebrating definitely. And the last thing, oh yeah, 120 hours of community service, and that was the one that I wasn't a fan of, because the thing is, like, the last time I did community service, I didn't have a job, so it was, it got me out the house, gardening, and what have you. It was a nice place where I went, but I had to make it balance with full-time work. Like I just booked holidays. I've had to use all my allocated holidays, as you know, we talk. But I've had to like use all my allocated holidays for work this year just to do community service, and it's super annoying. And but it's I'll go back into work the next week. I was doing it where I'll have a week off, go back into work the next week, and everyone would be like, "Oh, do you enjoy your holiday off and all of that?" And I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." And like really, like I've been like digging weeds in a cemetery, and it's just been like absolutely like when you're doing CS, because we call it CS here. But if you're doing CS like just once a week, every week, you get used to it. But doing CS for 6 days in a row, it really, there was like, because mosquitoes like me as well, and there was lots of mosquitoes and midges in that cemetery, and it did, so I'm getting mosquito bites. It wasn't where I wanted to be at all. But I got my hours down. I did them as soon as possible. So I'm like, right, that's one thing I don't have to worry about. The total of the fine was 239 pounds, I think. I don't have the letters with me, but it was around that figure. I paid that off in two payments, so I got that boxed off. And probation's been interesting because I remember I was going to have my first appointment, and I thought to myself, I wonder how the probation service treats people with ASPD. And I remember thinking, well, they probably don't realize, because I've been on probation before, and what I tend to do is just play the game. And I'll be on appointments like once a month, and sometimes I don't even have to go to them, because I'll always get my PO to like me, and you can always just do it over a phone call. It's great. But I'm just interested so far. What are you thinking of all this? Because you're reacting like a lot, and I have spoken for quite a while.
What how do the probation officers treat people with ASPD? Did they ever mention it, like, when you talk to them?
Well, they didn't know. Obviously, they didn't know I had it, but I told them, because I thought to myself, this can be my own little opportunity as an experiment.
Hmm.
And I mean, I'll probably get plenty of other chances in the future. Not that I need them now, but I thought to myself, I was like, I'm gonna let them know of my diagnosis, and I'll see how they respond, and maybe they'll get me in touch with therapy. Maybe they have to, you know what I mean? I'm thinking I
Yeah.
might actually be able to benefit from this in more than one way. Uh, Turns out it's not. If right, I'll tell you now from first-hand experience. If you've got a cluster B diagnosis, keep it to yourself, because they they gave me one. The first PO they gave me, because when you start with probation, you have to do a thing that says, do you feel remorse about what you did? What do you think you'll reoffend again? Not just for that offence necessarily, but in any way. And I gave all the true answers. So I was like, yeah, I'm probably going to get in trouble at some point. No, I don't feel bad about what I did. I didn't even hurt anyone. And I've got a victim surcharge to pay. So, like, screw the lot of you. I'm not really happy about that. And I was just like more or less unmasked, just like being as honest as it was. And well, that probation officer couldn't handle it for more than 10 minutes. So she got up and left. And then I got a text whilst I'm in work saying that my category or my level has been upgraded and that I've been assigned a new probation officer. And for whatever reason, I mean, I guess I thought it meant at the time like more punishment on me. So, and I was in work, so I was like, right, again, working morning shift. So I'm like thinking, I'm like, right, when I get out of here, I'm just going to go into the probation office unannounced. I'm going to kick up a storm. I'm going to demand to see, because it gave me the name of the PO who'd been assigned to me. And so I went in like without an appointment, which normally you're not supposed to do. And I want to speak to him. His name's Matthew, and he's a good. I like him now. I like him now. But
Mhm.
I said I can't remember his second name. I said I want to speak to Matthew. And I said, I'm not leaving until I do. I said, I've just had this text and blah, 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 and I'm not happy. And normally you'd be like waiting there for 20 minutes whilst Matthew finishes doing whatever he's doing. Well, he came out straight away and he was like, right, come with me. And immediately I could tell, I was like, right, they've put their strongest guy on me. I was like, by the way he carries himself, I'm like, I'm watching him like a viper. You know what I mean? I'm like, this is a competition. Like most things to me are a game, but this is a goddamn game if there ever was one. So so I'm like, right, okay, I need to, I'm like, this guy's clearly on his guard. I'm gonna lower him a little bit. So me being me, I go to open the door for him when he selects like he says, "Oh, we'll go in this interview room." So I open the door and I go after you, and he goes, "Not allowed to do that." I'm like, what? I said I'm open. I said I'm being polite, and he said I can't do that in case I walk in front of you and you attack me from behind. Like you could have because you don't get metal detected or anything. It's not like some people think it is. It's like going into like say you're a lawyer. It's like me walking into your office. It's exactly the same protocol. There's no difference. And so I was like, right, okay. So he lets me go in first and sit down. And he sat me down and he was like, right, he said, this has got to be quick because I wasn't planning on seeing you today. I kept him in there for over an hour, by the way, deliberately because, again, it's like, I'm like straight away, I ain't having it. So he said that to me and I was like, yeah, no, you're not getting out of here that easily. And so we talked about some things. He mentioned things like he was like, so you're saying you're diagnosed with ASPD? I said, yeah. I said I'm definitely more educated than you are on it. And he actually he has a degree in criminology and psychology, and he mostly does work in prisons. So they've basically got like a prison worker to come down to probation.
Mm.
So I'm like, right, okay. I'm like, they're branching out. I'm like, they've branched out on me. You know what I mean? Like they're putting in the time and the resources. So I'm like, I'm taking this all in. And I said I can't remember much, but I was basically like, I'm leading them down certain conversational routes, and then just like sort of cutting them off. And I'm like, oh, I don't know. And he goes, well, what do you mean? Can you elaborate on that? No, not really. And I can see what's getting to him and I mean, the game, all these tricks. Yeah, And the at one point, and at one point, I actually made his chair leave the floor, not like me forcing him or nothing, but I said something to him. I said if you want to keep yourself safe, I said you better do like something or other. And he had like files in his hands, and he dropped them. He threw his arms up in the air, and he heard his chair legs leave the floor. And he said he lost his cool. He was like, "Do you realize what you're saying? You can't say that to a probation worker. Do you know how many would just like get up and walk out and say, I'm not dealing with this guy?" And I mean, just cool as a cucumber. I just leaned back. I went like that, and I went, Matthew, you can't arrest me for it, though, can you? And he just looked at me and he went, no, just one word, no. And I got the sigh of defeat out of him. And when I got the sigh of defeat, I was like, right, okay, I didn't say you can leave now, but I was like, right, well, if there's anything else you'd like to cover with me, other than that, I'm happy to leave. And he was like, yeah, sure, we'll book an appointment. And so every week from February this year, every week, once a week, I've had to go to probation, and then you get a letter, you see your probation officer, and at first it was just like, I'm gonna mess with you, and that's it. Like, I'm not here to be your friend. But we talked about it like not so long ago, but he said, he was like, one thing I needed to do was like to play into your ego. And he's always, and it works on, it always works on us. I don't care like how old you are, whatever. But he's saying things to me. He's like, oh, you're clearly like very smart, and you clearly know your things. And it's like, if you say that to me, that's like like I'm like melted butter. Do you know what I mean? And I'm again, like, that's when the cockiness comes out. And he said to me, he was like, I've learned a couple of things from you. Like, I taught him how to. I was able, because we were off the record. You don't get recorded information like now. I was able to tell him more things about what I said in my interview, and he was just like, he was gobsmacked that I've even telling him this, but he got used eventually. And he said, he's like, I've learned things from you. He's like, and like how to lie more efficiently and things like that. And he oh yeah, and another thing. So we have a thing in this country. I mean, you probably have the same thing, but you may call it something different. They're called RAR days, rehabilitation activity requirement, and that's where the prosecuted, the criminal, the criminal, which is me in this case, we have to do. Did I get 25? No, no, I got no, no. I think I got 25 raw days, which is like a lot, and we only ended up doing 12 in the end. But it's all fine on the system. But the thing is with me is that because of my type of offence, like they have like support groups for like information to do these raw days for like wife beaters, drug users, nonces. They don't have support groups for sociopaths who think they're entitled to just do what they want and who just don't really care. So do you know what I mean? So it's like, well, the only way we can do raw days are like by doing them here. Well, I managed to do a couple. I did an attempt on the psychopathy checklist. That was a raw day. And he looked at my score. He's not, at least I don't think he's administered or what's the word? I don't think he's like licensed to administer the psychopathy checklist, but he knows what it is. He knows how it's administered more or less. And I showed him, like, I laminated it and everything, and I showed him my score that I came up with. And the way that I did this, I was like, right, this needs to be done with 2 people at the very least. So the only person that I really knew who'd do it with me, which in hindsight, I could have done it with you, but
Mhm.
it's just having I needed it done right away. And so I rang my baby's mother and I said, look, hey, I said, we need to go through this together because I've got raw days to do and we don't know how we're going to do them, but they have to be done. Otherwise, I'm back in front of the judge and I go in the slammer. So we went over it. It took us a good hour at least, probably like more, maybe nearly 2 hours. And there were a lot of times that like we were reading them off one by one. So like living a superficial charm. I explained to her how it's graded and all of that. And she went, oh yeah, she went 2 out of 2. The grandiose sense of self-worth, the 2 out of 2, and all of this. But there were a lot of traits where I said, I'd read them out. Like I said, oh, lack of realistic long-term goals. I said, oh, that's a 0. We can put a 0 for that. And she'd always interject in me like, no, no, no. She said, well, what about like this and this and this and this? And I'm like, but these are all behavioral examples that I've just forgotten about. And I'm like, oh yeah, like I did do that, or I do that sometimes now, but maybe not as often. So the final score we came up was 32 out of 40, which does correlate with like my LSRP test results and other stuff. So it matches out. And I brought my PCLR score to my probation officer after 6 months of us knowing each other, or 4 months, about 5 months knowing each other, if I remember right. And he looked at it and he read it and he went, he said, this is exactly how I would score you if we were in a prison setting. So I'm pretty confident in the score just because of his opinion. And, you know, he's got like degrees up the wazoo, you know, in criminology and psychology. So he's just the right guy to ask on that sort of thing. So we did that, and he picked my brain as a case study, but I think he was very aware that I'm also picking at his in a way. And but yeah, it made probation interesting, telling them that I had ASPD,
Yeah.
far more interesting than just like 5 minutes of, oh, how you been? Been fine. Are you staying out of trouble? Yeah. All right. When you're free for your next appointments? All right. See you then. There's your paper. Ta-ra. And then we do it again in a month's time. It was intellectually stimulating, but it was just like that every week. Like, I've got to go. Imagine having to go to, I mean, people do, but like, just imagine that every single week, and you've got to do it, otherwise you go to jail. That's the main gripe. But it's done. Excuse me. It's finished now, and he's an all right guy. We ended up getting on really well after about a month or two, I'd say. It became a bit less of a me versus you kind of a thing. And I mean, looking back, he more or less made it like he wanted to learn from me. He played into my ego, like, fair play to him. I would if I was in his shoes, because it works, especially with a narcissistic personality disorder as well. You know, that's the golden ticket to the chocolate factory right there. But it was interesting, you know. Like, I'm going. The thing is that the only thing is though is that in work, because we have like a changing rooms, we have to wear uniform and that, and it's like I've got to be careful, because it's like I'll have my appointments, and I've got to bring like my mental health files with all my, you know, records in, and like my DSM-5, and it's like I've got them in my bag, and it's like as I've got my bag open and I'm getting changed, I'm like very wary, like I've got to make sure my bag stays shut, but I've got to be able to like sort my stuff. Yeah, I don't want anyone looking in my bag and being like, "Oh, what's that say there?" And you know, blow my whole cover, and maybe even lose my job. But yeah, so it's been fun. That's what it's been like to be me. I'm always leading a double life essentially. Like, I've been doing these podcasts we first spoke 11 months ago, you know, so nearly a year, and the whole time I've had a criminal case going on. No one's known about it. Like, you know what I mean? There's always my dad did say to me once, "You've always got something going on. There's always like something like behind the scenes." And at the moment, it's this more or less that's taken that place. But the only conditions that I have now for my probationary sentence, and I've got a letter and I've like blue tacked it to my wardrobe, because every time I get a new probation appointment, I just take down the old one, put up the new one on a little dot of blue tack, and I've got to let them know of any. I've got to let them know if I change my name, which, like, I love my name. Like, I'm named after like the original narcissist of literature, which is like, you know, the irony is untold. Um, and I've got to also let them know of any online aliases as well. So I was like, well, that's interesting. Like that's never been a thing before. And he knows. I've said to him, well, you know, I do these podcasts, and I've told him about you as well. And he's like, oh, that's good. You know, keep doing them. And he said once he gets rid of me, he might actually start to watch these. So for all we know, he might be watching right now. And it's like, I think that's a good thought, because I do like the guy very much. Wish him well. And so yeah, I've got to let them know of a change of name, any online aliases. I've got to ask permission if I want to change address, which I don't want to do. I mean, I don't have any plans on doing at the moment. I've also got to let them know if I change my mobile number as well, which again, I don't plan on doing. You know, I've had the same number for years. I plan on keeping it that way. So as long as everything's hunky dory, I don't have to think about them ever again, really. But January 28th next year is going to be like, that's going to be I don't celebrate my birthday, but I'll celebrate that like it's my birthday. But And one thing I've recognized in all this is that I've spent half of my child's life on court ordered probation. For half of the time he's been out of the womb, I've been under the thumb of the law. And my baby's mother, I told this to his mother, and she said, yeah, you have. And she said, you say this like it's like it's some sort of like fact, like a trivial fact. She said, you need to like just take it seriously and just stop misbehaving. But it just feels trivial to me. It was fun. It honestly, I mean, despite the nuisance it's been on me, I'll look back on it as a fond memory.
Hmm.
From everything. And, it's been very fun. So,
I really
thoughts?
like that word trivial. I think like it explains the way I mean, you used it to describe the way you feel, but I feel like it describes the way I feel about a lot of things, including my birthday, which I don't celebrate my birthday either. Like there's
Yeah,
so many things that are just trivial, and it's such a good word because it's not that they don't exist. It's not that like you're still tacking the little letters or whatever to your wardrobe. It's not like
yeah,
it's totally off your radar, but it's more like just kind of remembering, I don't know, to like go to the dentist or something. That's the level of stress
yeah.
or
I
or
forget.
interest.
When it comes to my birthday, like I'm coming up to 24 now, and it won't be until like 3 or 4 months after that that I'll start saying I'm 24. I'll still say that I'm 23, because it doesn't. I didn't. The last birthday I celebrated was my 18th, and it's just past that. It's just like I'm 18 now. I mean, I was already drinking and smoking, like since I was 15. So turning 18 didn't make a bit of bother to me at all. In fact, I did it where because I used to go to like a community college, and I got kicked out. And but what you get from them is like a bus pass, like a free one. You can just get on the bus anywhere with it. And it's got your birthday on it. And what I did, and if you've seen the show, or if anyone of you watching have seen the show Better Call Saul, Jimmy McGill does the same thing. He like changes the numbers on an address on a letter, and I did that with the year of the birthday on the bus pass. I printed out these like tiny little numbers. I can't remember what I changed it to, but I printed out these tiny little numbers in college, and I got some double-sided tape and I took it home, and I used like toenail scissors because they're dead small ones. And I remember like just cutting them into like perfect little squares so like you could still see the black ink like that projected on the bus pass, but it just had to fit perfectly. And it's not an accepted form of ID, a bus pass, but there's like loads of like foreign owned corner shops that don't mind it. So like that was a way of getting a pack of fags if I needed any,
Mm.
or a drink. So turning 18, it was just like, oh well, I can go to the shop legally now, and I just know I won't be turned down for buying alcohol or cigarettes, and that's the only difference. But, now it's weird because it's said that a lot of narcissists make a big deal of their birthday, which like that makes perfect sense because it's a whole day dedicated to them. But I'm like, well, why does it have to just be one day? Why can't every day kind of be like that? But yeah, no, the birthday doesn't matter. But January 28th, I will be. I'll be celebrating absolutely. I might just go out for a bit on my own and just see what happens. I mean, you know what I mean? Just go to a pub and talk to people. Because I like doing that sometimes just to get out a bit. And it's interesting. I got told by a guy in a pub a few months ago. I was wearing not this, but do you know a bolo?
Yeah.
I was wearing I've got like a black bolo with like a silver outline to it, like it's in a silver frame almost, but I call it a frame. It's the same bolo that if you've seen Pulp Fiction, John
Mm.
Travolta, it's like
Yeah.
with the silver tips and the black. cord. I've got the
Uh-huh.
same bowler as him. And someone in a pub, they said to me not long ago, they said, they tapped me on the shoulder like from behind. And so like I turned around. But like as soon as I saw him, I could tell he was harmless. So I was like, oh, he's okay. And he looked at me. He didn't seem too drunk, but he looked like I looked him like directly in the eye. Like initially, I made eye contact, and he sort of just like he went. He, he didn't seem afraid of me, but he seemed rather like he was caught off guard, and he just looked and he went, "Whoa!" He said, "You remind me of a." He said, "You're just like a vampire." He said, "He said you remind me of a vampire." And weirdly enough, that week I'd heard something about vampires, and I like a couple of films to do with the subject. Like Bram Stoker's Dracula is a good one. I'm a big Coppola fan. I like The Godfather, Apocalypse Now, and it was when I was watching Dracula as well, and I was thinking the mythological creature of the vampire, what that is that's essentially a vampire is a mythological attempt or version of a psychopath.
Hmm.
If you put the hair psychopathy checklist to any vampire or any sort of test, they're grandiose. They have no conscience, and they're like us. We're like, we have hair, skin, and we look human, and we technically are human, but a vampire lacks what people call humanity.
Hmm.
So, like, essentially, like, that's what a vampire is. A vampire is like a telling or a portrayal of psychopathy, but as a mythical creature.
Yeah.
And then it's like a few days later, this guy in the pub taps me on the shoulder and says that. And I think that I ended up, I told him, I said, it's crazy. I don't think I told him my diagnosis, but I said to him, I said, I was just thinking about this thing. I said, and you said it. But the odds of that are, I mean, astronomical. But what do you think about I mean, I'm right, aren't I? I mean, I know
Yeah.
I'm right.
No,
That's
and I
what it is.
think one of the what I think is the best one of the best fictional depictions of a psychopath is from the Swedish movie, and which I think comes from a novel, Let the Right One In. And I think it's like perfect. It's like exactly it's exactly what a psychopath is.
Right, I've heard of that. I mean, I'm sure you'll message me anyway, but I'll just write that down now. Left the right one, because I've heard of that. I don't know anything about. I don't know who's in it, who's directed it, or what.
Hmm.
But no, yeah. But I'll now that you've said that, because I'm always on the hunt for movies that are like depicting psychopathy. I've got a bunch, but like No Country for Old Men. That's coming out on 4K in December. So any physical media fans watching, I'll be picking that up with you. Massively looking at the Blu-ray. I mean, you're not into physical media, are you? No, if you've seen the Blu-ray disc, it looked like that was a really good looking Blu-ray, so I'm excited for that. But yeah, No Country for Old Men, Blade Runner, A Clockwork Orange. I recently watched The Dark Knight with Heath Ledger. That's a pretty good one. But like even the original Batman series, Cesar Romero in that. He's got that like Jack Nicholson bolt of lightning. I call it bolt of lightning psychopathy, where we're just like we're not just going through the motions, but we're causing the waves, so to speak. It's just like we're not like these, like we're emotionally shallow, but we've got energy. Do you know what I mean? We're like, it's more like I'd say it's more like me, like the narcissistic psychopath, where that ego gives us the drive, and it comes out a bit more in our like body language and behavior. But yeah, absolutely. But let the right one. I will when we're done with this. I'll put it in my eBay basket. I'll trust you
Right.
on that. Is it
Uh-huh.
a good film or is it just a good depiction of psychopathy?
I think it's a good film too. So there's a Swedish version and there's an American version. I like the Swedish version better. I think it's darker.
Well, yeah. Is it originally in Swedish?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I'll
Subtitled.
get the Swedish one then. I'm not a fan of I don't like dubbing, or like it should be watched as intended. Like,
Yeah.
have you ever seen? There's a French film. It's one of my favorites of all time, called Irreversible by
Mm-mm.
Gaspar Noé.
I
That's
will
a
look this
really
up.
yeah. A lot of people can't even like sit through that because there's like loads of camera and noise tricks that are
Mm.
used, kind of like things like vertigo and all this other stuff. It's yeah, and the content of it, it's like really violent and graphic. There's not really much to do with psychopathy in it at all. But it's like if there's a film that's Swedish, or a film that's French, or like not long ago I watched the original first Dracula film from like 1935, and I watched the Spanish version, not the English, because I wanted to see
Mm.
the original piece of art in its original form as intended. And I'm not a fan of censorship either in anything. I don't like censorship. It's like you're telling me what I can and can't look at, whilst you're presenting me with something you want me to look at. It's like they don't censor it. Yeah, I want to be like uncut or unadulterated.
Well, we've been like talking now for hours.
Hours? How long have we?
Yeah,
What's the time?
yeah,
Goodness
almost.
gracious!
We've
Yeah,
been
we have.
talking almost 3 hours, and then recording, like a little over two or whatever. But do you want to press pause on this conversation, and we'll chat again in a couple months?
Yeah, we've got one kind of sorted, don't we?
I
Uh,
think so. Yeah, we're trying to get it worked out. Yeah, depending on
yeah,
scheduling.
it won't just be. We've got a special guest who's trying to join us. We won't drop any hints. And
Okay.
but yeah, we're getting that worked out. But yeah, I'll have had my first session of therapy, but by that date we've got planned, because it's after the 18th. Um, I might also have a response because I've applied for personal independent payment support from the government, and I mean I really like, because you only get one shot with it, I think. So I like
Really?
put like a copy of my diagnosis in, and I put a supporting note from my local pastor at the church I attend, as well from I think my baby's mum put one in as well. So I still haven't. It takes months to get a response. So maybe I probably won't have a response by then. It might be towards the end of the year, or even next year if I'm unlucky. But I'm just hoping that if I get that, I'll use that to pay for therapy. So
Nice.
yeah, that's what that's for. Fingers crossed. Yeah, I'll have had first therapy again. Like, I'm off probation now. It's easier to plan these things. It's easier to plan anything, to be honest. Because I've always
Mhm.
got to make sure I go to the probation, but I don't have to do that anymore. And but yeah, so it's been, it has, we were talking about the legal system, how I've navigated it personally, and what I haven't realized also is like I've been talking about how my ASPD has navigated me through it, and
Mhm.
the sort of, I mean, maybe thinking back on it, I'd say the arrogance shows, but in the moment, I'm never arrogant. So I might be being like that right now, but I don't see it. But we talk
No,
about all sorts.
I have really enjoyed. I didn't kind of comment during it, but I really identified with like the way that you handled everything, where like in the moment you're like, these people don't even know the game that I'm playing on them. They think there's a game on me. The game's really
Yeah,
on
yeah,
them.
yeah,
Yep.
and especially when you're, they think that they think that just because they're the ones on that side of the door or on that side of the interview table that they've got it. I mean, again, M.E, I stuck my hand through the cell door to a detective, and he didn't even think about it. He just straight away shook it. I mean, who can blame him? I mean, I mean, I'll have been like his favorite like guys ever, criminal he's ever interviewed. Do you know what I mean? I played the game with him good. I mean, I played the game with all of them good, but him especially. Well, you can't. I'd be amazed I'd be amazed if you weren't like me or you, and you could do that. Put it that way. I'd be very, very surprised and amazed. But that's the one. I can almost feel his hand now on mine just talking about it. It was that like vivid. But yeah, no, we'll talk about I'll tell you what as well we can do if you want to see, because I'm on Instagram. I'm not crazy about, I mean, again, this is ironic. I'm not crazy about having followers or being Instagram famous. I don't like that expression. I think it sounds stupid, but it's a real thing. So you've got to acknowledge it. If you want to actually physically look at my diagnostic test results, if you want the links to those, I'm going to create an Instagram post. And by the time that you're watching this and this goes live, we'll link my account in the description. I can send you all of that. We'll do that. And you can go over, you can actually read my mental state examination for yourself. You can look at my test results. You can let me know what you think. Do you want the links to them? And you can, or you can just send me a message saying hi, or you can ignore it. The choice is yours. Free will and free thought. That's what we're about here. But if you want as well, you can catch me on Discord. There's links in the Discord server below, I'm sure. And I mean, lastly, I'd say buy the book. Buy the book. I need to. Last thing I'll say before I go, I annotate books as I read them, but I'll only do it in black ink. So as I was reading your book, I didn't have a black ink pen, but there was a lot I identified with, so I need to reread it to annotate it. So I'll be doing that. But yeah, getting on all that. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe, all the YouTube stuff, and we'll see you with a mystery guest in the hopefully the near future. Thank you for having me on, Emmy. It's been an absolute pleasure again. Absolute pleasure. Nothing short of it.
Thank you so much, Dorian. I've enjoyed it as well, and we'll chat you soon.